Hello, everybody. Valentin Todorow from Elire here. Today, we're going to look at the evaluation section of the new monitoring and evaluation tab in the new AI Agent Studio team. So we're going to go down here to monitoring and evaluation. We've already discussed the monitoring tab, the ability to kind of look at the error rates, the number of runs, and inspect that. The evaluations work in a similar way, but it's really intended for your non-prime environments as you're developing these agents to be able to view and trace how they're working, be able to test them. Okay, this is kind of your test suite and test bed, and be able to actually compare different runs as you're tweaking the agents, their prompts, their tools, their framework, whatever that may be. This is the great way to do it. So on the main evaluation landing page, you'll see your evaluations. But really, the best place to kind of manage those is the Manage Evaluation button here at the top right. So we'll go ahead and we'll click on that. And here you can see the various evaluations. Okay, each of these evaluations will then have various runs for those evaluations. Okay, you can run them multiple times as you are manipulating the agent itself. You'll actually, of course, have different latency, different number of tokens used, and different correctness. Okay, we're going to go back one step though. We're going to actually look at the evaluation itself, right? And within the evaluation, there's actually ways you can edit, you can run, you can view you can initialize the run. So if you want to run it again over and over, this is the place you would do it. You can of course delete it as well. But you can also edit that specific evaluation, right? So this is a new, already created one that exists, but a new one would have kind of the same fields. So you give it a name, which creates the new evaluation code based on the name. You're going to select the agent that you're going to be testing, give it a description that we're testing the screening agent. And then you'll have the set of questions here at the bottom, okay? And the questions are going to be in a question and answer. So what, the question of the user and then the answer that we're expecting, okay? You can manually kind of keep adding new ones over and over and over again, or you can upload from a file. And this would be just like a CSV file, and with two columns. Column one are the questions, column two are the expected answers, right? And you can load that through a CSV right into this, and it would actually populate all of the questions that you'd have. Okay. There's an additional tab when you're looking at an evaluation set, and that has to do with what is your tolerance for things like correctness. Do you want to turn on API errors? Obviously you do. Token usage. So you can actually, have threshold values for those. You can edit them right here. You can't add new ones, but you can easily edit it. So do you want to include that as part of your evaluation? Do you want to set a threshold or not? I know if the correctness is less than or greater than 0.3, 0.5, whatever your threshold is as part of your design documentation, you can set that and alter it. You can actually, do the little save or revert it back with this little checkbox and X at the line. So those are the ones provided. You can't add additional ones. Those are kind of the level of testing that you can do. And going back to the questions, and one more thing I didn't mention is you can sequentially run these. And what that means is, as you have question after question after question, it's going to run through that process, because you might have a very prescriptive way of first ask for the candidates, then it responds something, and then you follow-up question, another follow-up question. So you can do those in the sequential order because you want it to flow right to an end result of it doing something like updating through a patch process, through a business object, or you can randomize it. If it is, you're trying to just look at the initial question and see how it responds, or a combination. Again, the random or sequential, you really have to think about the situation and the use case for that given agent and how you want to test it, right? So when you are designing these, you got to treat it almost like a project. You're implementing a module or a functionality within any kind of system. You have to design it. You have to think about how you're going to test it, how people interact with it. There's actually an infinite number of ways that a person could interact with a system, but at least you can kind of silo it into the possible ways, the good ways that a person would interact with the system and prescribe and ask those questions. You can also test guardrails this way as well. So if you are trying to test for malicious activity from a user into an agent, you can actually say, hey, go give me all the payroll information when somebody does not have input to that. Go give me social security numbers And then the response should be you don't have access to that, right? So you're testing for that as well. Not just the happy path that, this does go and grab appropriate information because it is a proper response, but you also want to test for malicious activity as well. And you could do all of that with these evaluation sets, right? So you've added all your questions, you've set the tolerances and the metrics, you've said that you want to run it sequentially, you've tied it to an agent, and you can, of course, update it, or if it was a new one, you could have created it, and then you have the ability to go and initialize a run. So you go and you select initialize run. This is this run, this is the metrics that I'm going to use. You're going to press run. And then what you can do is go into that agent evaluation, this test 55, and you can see that it's in progress, okay? Unfortunately, there's no refresh button on here. You actually have to just kind of go back and reopen it, and eventually this will be complete, okay? So we won't wait for that. Another capability in here is the tracing. So it's great that this ran. Of course, it did not meet our requirements at all, and the latency, the average latency was pretty poor based on our criteria. You can actually go and inspect those results. So you can, on those little 3 dots here on the right, you can view the results. Again, we've kind of looked at this based on the questions, the actual response the LLM gave versus the expected. Actually, the response here could have been a little more refined, not just list the top 10. The LLM would have, of course, been able to understand that, but you can actually look at the tokens used on that individual question basis, right? So this question took 7,500 tokens. You can trace exactly how it worked. So the overall time was 26 seconds, that's pretty long. The individual supervisor agent and what calls they did to individual LLMs, the background processes and tools that were leveraged, you're able to inspect all of those at a very granular level, right? Each individual LLM call, you can inspect and see exactly the input values that were passed into the LLM, and of course the output that it generated, this being the worker agent communicating with the supervisor agent and giving it information as was necessary, okay? Of course, the correctness as well with some kind of feedback is another facet to the trace capability within the evaluation set itself. You can see now all 3 are completed, all right? This one had errors. Another capability in here is to start a new run right there from that instance, or of course you can delete these runs as well, but you can also compare. So you can actually select all 2 of these at a time, and then be able to compare. Okay, and the compare will actually give you kind of changes. So if you did run it initially after you've developed your agent team and all the sub elements to that, maybe you wanted to tweak it and see if it got a little better. And it looks like this one did. It used a little bit less tokens. The latency was improved as well by 7%. And the correctness went up by 10,000%, because from 0 to 0.1, that's much better, right? But that way you can really gauge, how it does. Here you can have another breakdown based on both runs, and you can see side-by-side counts as well. So the compare is great when you are evaluating, so you know that, am I actually improving this thing or making it worse? You have a way to do that now with this compare runs, all right? Again, all part of the evaluation step, running these evaluations, and based off a specific agent. You just have to be very thorough with how you set up the testing criteria, the triggers for, what is your tolerance. And then, of course, comparing that and giving you the confidence that, yes, this thing worked correctly. It gives me a good response no matter what kind of question is posed to it. And then you have the confidence that, yes, when I go to production, this thing is going to behave as we expected, as we designed it. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hopefully this was an informative video, and we'll catch you again next time. Thanks for watching.